The main challenge now is that of letting go of personality, and the personality does not seem willing to go. That is because the light is suffering from the delusion that it is the personality. So it is using the power of light to hold to that which it sees as itself. It's good for you to see this, to realize this, because this takes you back to the teaching of the power of light. As you see the great resistance you put against releasing the ideas of the personality, while also realizing that all of those forms of resistance come from you, you once again step into the realization of your power. This realization is a great place to be, because it is accepting the truth of who you are. Accepting this truth will move you closer to releasing your hold on personality, which is another step in the direction of realizing fully who you are. Look at everything now through the lens I have given you. There is nothing that can occur in your life that you do not have tools with which to see. Everything can be understood through the messages I have given you. When you are not understanding something, you are making it more complicated than it needs to be. Everything is simple. And seeing everything through this simplicity will show you exactly how to see. You are at a place in your willingness where you are ready to know yourself as you are. In order to take this step, you must stop avoiding the games you try to play. Let the games come to you without seeing them as fearful, without trying to hide. Hiding from games or denying them only teaches the mind that they are real. Let the games come to you now, all of them. Let them come that you may say goodbye. Each one that comes is a blessing. Recognize the purpose and remember your truth, and you will know how to say goodbye. So again, there are a lot of things in life that when we believe we are the personality, the little s self, and we believe the world is real, that when we see these circumstances coming our way, we try to avoid them. We try to manipulate things or control things or change things or fix things or change ourselves so that we can be better, be more good. And Spirit is really asking us to give up all of that, because when we try to avoid what we think is going to be painful for us by constantly controlling things, what we're really doing is continually teaching ourselves that we are the little self and that the world is real. Spirit is saying that because we've made the choice to awaken, everything that is coming to us so that we can let go of the false decisions that we've made before. We're saying goodbye to beliefs. We're saying goodbye to choices that we made before. You know, it's as if when we made these choices before, we kind of threw a stone into the water, and now there are ripples. And we want to go ahead and just let the ripples come and go right on by without throwing more stones into the water, right? Everything that is happening is coming so we could say goodbye to it, which is also saying goodbye to the personality and also saying goodbye to the world. So Spirit is asking us not to react, not to try and control, not to try and change, not to try and fix those things that we definitely would have tried to avoid before by controlling, fixing, changing, right? Now this next paragraph is where we begin new. We haven't read this yet. And so here's what Spirit has to say. I could tell you this will be difficult, but I will not. The part of your mind that wants to hear this, the part of your mind that wants to hear this will be difficult, right? The part of your mind that wants to hear this is the part of your mind that wants to drag this out. Can you guys hear that? The part of your mind that wants to hear that this is going to be difficult is the part of your mind that wants to drag this out. This isn't necessary now. You are closer to the kingdom than you think. Keep your face turned in this direction, right, towards Spirit. Do not turn to look at the signs that say you have very far to go. Those signs are only distractions, and they do not change what you already know. You know this. Your only error is listening to the false and believing the false is true. You sometimes do not recognize the false, but I am pointing those times out to you. Now, you must continue walking forward in trust, always asking me to help you see. As I point a tripping stone out to you, gently remove it from your path. Eager willingness will keep your steps consistent with me. Now again, if you remember the story that I told last week, I misunderstood someone, but I misunderstood that person to be threatening to kill Laurent and me. These are the types of things we normally try to avoid. Do you agree? Now, my first reaction was to go to Laurent. And that was actually, when I went to Laurent over the phone, that was out of my desire to try and avoid. I wasn't going to Laurent to say, Laurent, help me to see this differently. I was going to Laurent out of fear, saying, there's this bad thing that might happen. What are we going to do? So we could figure out a plan, right? So my intention for going to Laurent was out of fear in order to avoid being killed. Laurent did not have patience for me that night, which I took at that time to be an abandonment by my partner. But I later came to see that was absolutely the best thing that could happen. Because when I was, quote, abandoned by my partner, it left me with only one other option that I could see, and that was to go to Spirit. It would have been nice if I'd thought of that first. But I eventually got there. So I went to Spirit with this fear, and this was literally the fear of death. I went to Spirit with this fear. And without words, this message came later, and this message includes really the clarity that was in that time that I went with Spirit. But when I went to Spirit directly the first time, there were no words. There was just understanding. So without words, Spirit helped me to see that everything that was happening right now had only one purpose, and that one purpose was to awaken. And Spirit helped me to see that what I needed to do was look at my mind, at all of my fears, at all of my thoughts, and let them go. This was here to let go of everything false, to let go of the belief that I was a self, a body who could be killed, right? To let go of fear, any fear at all that said that I was vulnerable, that said that there was fear of death. This situation was here to let go. Spirit did not make any promises to me. Spirit did not say, if you spend this time doing what I'm asking you to do, I promise I'll take care of the situation and he won't kill you. Right? There were no false promises. For all I knew during this period of time, this script was going to play out. This man was going to show up at the conference as I thought he was, and he was going to shoot me and Laurent like it sounded like he was threatening, right? And Spirit didn't make any false promises. Spirit just asked me to let go of the fear. You know, I did a teaching last Friday morning. If you haven't heard it yet, it goes really, really well with what we're talking about right now. It was from Jan Fraser's book, and she talked about the reason we don't let go of fear is because we believe it protects us. But you can tell that this situation is one of those situations. It seems like the fear that's coming up, telling me that this person is going to kill me, and me calling Laurent and trying to figure out what we're going to do. That within the world all seems sensible. It's not crazy to try and avoid being murdered, right? But when I went to Spirit's guidance without any promises about what was going to happen in the script was to let go of this fear. And what he did make me a promise. I take that back. He did make me a promise. What he promised me was this was happening to help me let go of the world and the little self. That's what he promised me, was the purpose. And he asked me to join with him in that purpose, wanting nothing except awakening. Not wanting the body to be saved, not wanting the situation to be avoided, wanting nothing but awakening. And I did that. Let me tell you, as Paul Harvey says, the rest of the story. I ended up letting go of that fear at that time. And as you know, this message came the next morning. But let's fast forward, I don't know how far, a year and a half maybe? Fast forward a year and a half. Some of you guys know this part of the story because you were involved in this. About a year and a half later, this same person that seemed to be threatening Laurent and me at this point, threatening to come to a conference and blow us away. He said, I'm going to blow you away. In fact, what he said was, he said, I don't want to, but my guides are telling me I have to. I'm going to blow you away. You see why maybe I got scared from those words? About a year and a half later, 2 years later, I don't know exactly how far into the future it was, but this person made a post. Hello, Christian. It's been a while. This person made a post on the peace of God saying that he was going to come to be the love, so another conference. He said he was going to come to be the love, and he said, false teachers beware. And so I just made a post and told him, welcome, that he was welcome to come to be the love. And then he made another post. And he said, just because you follow Spirit doesn't mean you won't be assassinated. This is the same man. Just because you follow Spirit doesn't mean you won't be assassinated. I know some of you guys remember this. I felt, and this is the reason I'm calling it the rest of the story, because the first time when he said he was going to come to Camp for Miracles and blow us away, that his guides were telling him he needed to do that, I experienced an enormous amount of fear. Remember, and Spirit asked me to let go of that fear, let go of that fear. This time I felt what I'm going to call a ripple from that fear. It was not at all an enormous amount. I didn't call anyone and ask, how are we going to plan to avoid this? I went directly from the computer to my chair to Spirit. It took me, honest to God, less than a minute to let go of the fear, to see the fear rushing in me and to let it go. And then ask Spirit, what am I to do? So that's how I know a healing occurred, because I was faced with the same situation and my response was different, right? Now what's funny is after I let go of the fear, I asked Spirit, what am I to do? And Spirit told me something that didn't seem to make sense at the moment. Spirit said, ask him to explain what he means. Well, at that time, it seemed pretty clear what he meant. He had threatened to kill me and Laurent before, right? He had said his guides had said he was going to blow us away. And now here's the same guy saying just because you follow Spirit doesn't mean you won't be assassinated, based on history, based on past, plus other experiences I've had with this person. It seemed pretty clear what he meant. But when I let go of the fear and I asked Spirit, what am I to do? Spirit said, ask him to explain what he means. Now, I did not have fear, but I will tell you, others did. There are people in this room who did. There were people who started wanting to cancel their Be the Love registrations. Yeah, Monica just said she almost didn't come. Pamela wanted to call the police. She wanted to call the police and get a restraining order. I told her to wait. I said, wait, Pamela, wait. And I made that post, and I asked him what he meant by that. Now, the funny thing is, this is kind of the joke in it all, is that he wasn't around when I made that post, so it was like 6 hours before he responded. And so in that 6 hours, this was giving other people the opportunity to panic, and I was explaining to them, let's just wait, let's just see what he says, here was my guidance, let's not do anything. So for 6 hours, instead of me being in fear like in the previous experience, now I'm being the comforter. After about 6 hours or so, he saw the post, and he came back. And he said, gosh, I want to remember his exact words if I can. I don't know if I can remember his exact words, but I definitely remember his explanation. His explanation was that he did believe I was a false teacher. And I may have told you all before, he was someone who wanted to be in a romantic relationship with me, and I believe his feeling that I was a false teacher came from my lack of desire to be in a relationship with him. So he did believe that I was a false teacher, and he felt like he needed to save the world by showing everyone that I'm a false teacher. This was his objective. And he believed that if he came to be the love, when he walked through the door and I saw him, that I would be so disgusted, right? So upset to see him, that there would be a reaction on my face that would be anything but love. And everyone would see that reaction. Everyone would see how I would recoil when he walked through the door. And through that, everyone would then know that I was a false teacher. But he would feel personally assassinated, character assassinated. Listen to what he wrote. Just because you follow Spirit doesn't mean you won't be assassinated. He was talking about himself. It was not a threat. He believed he was following Spirit to come and expose me as a false teacher, but it was going to hurt him. It was after this that I got clarity that the previous time when he appeared to be threatening, when he said that he was going to come and blow us away, he didn't mean like with a gun. He meant with words. He was going to out-teach us. It's at this point that I got clarity that this had all been a misunderstanding. And it turned out magnificent, because when he saw that everyone else had thought that he was going to try and come and kill me or kill someone, he was really happy that I had asked him to explain. In fact, he temporarily perceived me as his savior, saving him from, being embarrassed, being seen wrong. And of course, it was Spirit. Remember, Spirit was his savior, because Spirit is the one that asked me to ask him what he meant by that, right? He decided not to come to be the love, even, after that. He decided not to come. And he had already paid like $190 deposit. We told him he could have his deposit back under these circumstances, but he actually decided to donate the deposit as a scholarship for someone else. The point, there's actually a couple of points here, several points in this story. This is a great story. The point, again, is that over a period of about 2 years, first I had an opportunity to perceive myself as physically threatened, and Spirit led me to let go of that fear. Then I had another opportunity to perceive the same thing, and my reaction to it, my going to guidance was all much faster, much more mature. You can see that the lesson has been learned, right? But I think there's a second lesson in this story that, even though it doesn't really have a lot to do with this message, or not as directly with this message, that I want to share. The second thing was when Spirit asked me during that second event, when Spirit asked me to ask him to explain what he meant, at an intellectual level, that guidance made no sense to me because I really did think I knew what he meant. So the guidance to ask him to explain made no sense at an intellectual level. But I did it anyway, and I'm glad I did because, see, it did make sense. So guidance doesn't have to make sense to the intellect. I think that's the second point. It just happens to fit here. So, what Spirit is saying in this message, let's go back to the message, is everything that happens is happening for our awakening. And Spirit wants us to go to him in all situations and ask him how I am to see, right? Not decide for ourselves what this means. Listening to this paragraph again, this paragraph I'm reading right underneath, you know this. He says, your only error is listening to the false and believing the false is true. You sometimes do not recognize the false, but I am pointing those times out to you. Now you must continue walking forward in trust, always asking me to help you see. As I point a tripping stone out to you, gently remove it from your path. And when the Spirit says gently remove it from your path, what he's saying is, if I ask you to set down and let go of fear, you set down and let go of fear. If I ask you to do something specific, like write to him and ask him what he means, you write to him and ask him what he means. So by following Spirit's guidance in the moment, that's how we gently remove the stone out of our path. It's the follow-through on the guidance. Whether the guidance is rest, accept, and trust, or whether the guidance is write an email, or whether the guidance is leave this place, or go to that place, right? Whatever the guidance is. Our job is not to think for ourselves. Our job is not to look at the world and think we understand. And like I said, this story, the reason this story is so magnificent is, especially if you knew all of my experience with this person, if you had the full story, you would understand why I believed this person was threatening to kill me. We think we know stuff. We look at what somebody has said and we think we know why they said it, and we think they know what we meant, and we think we have a right to be offended or a right to be afraid. But what Spirit is telling us is we don't know anything. We're walking around believing the false. If we're walking around believing the false, look how confused we are. Spirit is telling us our job is to ask him always, how am I to see this? What am I to do now? Right? This is really emphasized in the teachings of Inner Ramana. Your only error is listening to the false and believing the false is true. You sometimes do not recognize the false. That's because you're so damn sure it's true. You sometimes do not recognize the false, but I am pointing those times out to you. Now you must continue walking forward in trust,